Alright, here's a quick video on transports. Ripley, you don't need to watch this one. Bottom line, just got a couple things I want to tell you about transports. I've already got a couple tier 2s out here for Seraphim and a tier 1. All you really need to know about tier 1 is obviously they have lesser carrying capacity. They can carry a handful of tier 1 units. They can carry one tier 3, which does include the sub-commanders. You cannot carry your ACU with these. So basically they'll carry at least one of everything in the game except the ACU. If you need to get your ACU around, or more importantly get them out of trouble, these are not your boy. Right? So they're nice early on, nice to move a couple. You get like usually 4 or 6 depending on your faction, but they're cheap quick. Tier 2 is where it's at though. Tier 2 will carry up to 4 tier 3, and that includes 4 sub-commanders. They will also carry your ACU. Now something to note, this one's carrying a shield generator for Seraphim. You'll note the shield generator will not work. As soon as I put him down, it'll have like a quick recharge point and then it'll pop on. So keep that in mind if you're transporting army units with shield generators. It'd be lovely if you got the shield bonus while you're flying. Now that's really funny though, because one thing they will do is if you're carrying a Cybran, or maybe Nomads, they might have one too, but if you're carrying a Cybran stealth unit, they will stealth the carrier. So the shields don't work in the air, but the stealth does, and that's great because if you're trying to do something sneaky with engineers as Cybran, throw a stealth in there and the entire carrier and its cargo will not show up on radar unless it flies through Omni. So that's really tricky. But that being said, standard ways of loading up a carrier, so you can do it 2 ways. You can actually right click on them, hold shift, you can right click multiple targets, and then still holding shift you can give it a new command, so he'll pick these things up one by one, which is kind of slow, especially if they're bumping into each other, but he'll do it. While we let him do that, you can also grab the units and right click the transport, so it goes both ways. God, this guy's being real slow, eh? Oh, that's why, because this engineer's coming to him. I like to do it this way instead. Click the units and then click on the actual transport, because you'll see the transport flies to them and they don't have as far to walk. Then you can move the transport with the usual waypoints as you wish. U is the unload hotkey. If you hold shift for that too, you can just unload them. And then you can still issue a move command afterwards to get your transport to fly back. So he's going to hit all those waypoints, unload them, and move back. Likewise, you can grab these guys. If you select them, you can see the cargo. So he's got 1 tier 1 and 2 sub-commanders. You can click these uniquely to get a single unload order, and then holding shift, unload all 3. And still give a move order afterwards. Shift is your friend. You can queue up just so much stuff with shift in this game. You can see he's unloading these at different points, and when he drops the last one off, he'll move over here. This is great with tier 1 engineers and a tier 1 transport. I love it. Load up like 4 engineers, and if you've got a map where you want to get up here and up here and up here, you can do it that way by again clicking on the actual individual units the transport's carrying. Now, ferrying though. Ferrying is where it's at, man. Double click all your transports. You can shift and include tier 1s if you want, but I'm just going to get my transports here. I'm going to right click where I want the ferry point to start. Then I'm going to hit the F key. You don't have to wait for these guys to get there. Hold F. This is the icon for F, this purple X. And you can now left click and set waypoints for the ferry. And off you go. And this starts when they get into position. You can set that up before they're there, but when they get into the position, the first one there will start this. And this is great because you can just do this now. I get a little screwed up sometimes. I think I have to push to talk. Now this transport is going to carry all this. That's why only one flew over. If I do this now, it's going to send as many transports as are required. If they can't all pick up in that load, if there's more waiting, then you'll get a transport full message. Or maybe I'm lying to you. I keep hitting push to talk. That's hilarious. Anyways, we're going to let them go. Now, one of the coolest things about doing multiple waypoints in just a straight line, obviously you get to steer them if they need to go around anti-air interceptors or anything, but you can drag these points. And a fun thing about it, you can see that they're all headed, it shows you which waypoint they're headed for. This guy was a little slow picking up, so he's still going for the first one. But if you don't want that kind of drop, if you don't want them to spread out like this is what I love doing, is you just keep moving this. so that they never reach it. You want to make sure they don't accidentally touch it, because then they'll head to the next waypoint up here. But you do this, and you can just literally move it over here now. And you see what happens is they're going to slowly start grouping. Takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of mental, but if that's what you wanted to do, if you didn't want them to drop all spread out so they get shot one at a time, there you go, nice and grouped up. Now you can let them continue on. If I'm doing a drop full of tanks and stuff, I'll always do that. Why spread them out, right? Especially if they're under fire when they land. Now, you don't ever want to get the stuff too close to anti-air, especially flak. Flak will shoot and damage the units as well as the transport. A lot of times flak, because it's AoE, will kill the units before it kills the transport. The transport gets all the way in and all its cargo has died, so yeah, that's kind of shitty. Alright, and then they'll just return. They'll pick up these guys that are patiently waiting. You notice that the transports will fly. If the units are over here and you click here, the transports will go to them. But anything that doesn't get picked up will shorten the distance by going to the point. So I'm just going to cancel that. You can select these guys. You can shift drag this if you want. But I'm just going to let these guys back away. I'm going to have a little fun here. I shouldn't have flown all my sackers away, but I did. You see I set a ferry point up, but it won't appear until it gets here. There it is. Right click it, they'll move over. This went crazy fast when I had all the sackers on it. I shouldn't have taken them all away. But that's okay, I'm just going to make a few more of these, don't need tons. One of the nice things about this too is when we've got the ferry point over here, you can select new transports and just assist the ferry point, and they will become a part of that ferry now. There's not an easy way that I can tell to see if they're part of the original ferry point. And if you do everybody, I think it'll eventually cancel the ferry point. Not sure about that. But if you're not sure, the easy way to do it again is just to double click everything. Right click, you see the ferry point disappeared. And give them a new ferry point. Here we go. I'm going to rally a few more transports out here so I know which ones are separated. It's a little bit of build power. This isn't even extreme. This could be tier 3 engineers and it would still spit them out pretty fast. So late game, you can do some fun things if you need transports in a hurry. They tend to get shot up a lot when they're just sitting around your base. So it's kind of fun to put some eco into transports on demand. It's only costing about 100 mass per second, which late game isn't as big a deal. If you've got the army, you can take 30 seconds and produce yourself 8 transports. Alright, we're getting a little silly here. That'll be good. Select them all, assist the ferry point. Now again, the nice thing about this is they will fly to the units if there's a distance. So if it's invasion time, I'm going to do a mix here. I'm actually... They don't need to fly halfway across the map to prove my point. But yeah, in we come. These tier 1 up top have decided they're not going to get picked up in the first load, so they're heading to the ferry point. And now that they're gone, we can add the rest of those. And then one of the neat things you can do is you can actually grab the... this would be better if the ferry point was by the factory because they're going to stream here. But, oh here, I know it. Instead of doing combat units, I'll do it with these guys. Let's create some engineers. And let's have the factory's waypoint right onto the ferry point. You can see that this is the factory selected. you can see it's going to load. It changes the icon from a regular point to this. So yeah, right click right on that point, and units coming out of the factories will automatically queue up for the ferry point. And now we're doing a drop to make Ripley drool. You can probably control Shift, Alt, and right click to remove points. Yeah, sure you can. You can do that with all the waypoints. So, all right, coming in for the second wave here, you can see most of them have come in. With it being spread out like this is probably not optimal. Like I said, you do want to have your rally point close to the ferry point. I was just demonstrating they'll move, but let's see how smooth this does or doesn't work out. Not bad. There comes a point where they realized they were all getting picked up in a group and they stopped moving, but at least they got closer than they were back here, right? Let's just do us a favor and get rid of them. It does have a priority in pickup. You can see that even though I select them all at the same time, it picked up all the tier 3 units first, then it brings in the tier 2 and the tier 1. It'll also do weird things sometimes if you only have a couple transports. Sometimes it'll pick up all your anti-air and leave your tanks behind, and that's exactly what you want to start the invasion with, right? It's a whole bunch of flak. I mean, I guess if you're expecting gunships, it's good, but otherwise sometimes it's kind of stupid. It'd be nice if they mixed a little better, but... Okay, you can see here we're streaming these engineers out now, and they are just getting auto-picked up. As soon as they're out of the factory, look, these guys haven't even made it to the ferry point. This transport said, "You're mine," and he's picking them all up. The rest of the transports will sit here because we're obviously not producing enough to really fill these transports anymore, but if that's what you want to do, if you want to push a front line, then you just set these ferry points up from your factory. It's way better than streaming them all the way across the map, because we know that sucks. If your base is here and you're trying to kill the computer over here, you don't want to run this crap all the way over here. Unless you're worried about them getting shot down by interceptors, it's really so much better to bring the ferry point to here, or if you're just making the final push, bring the ferry point all the way over here. Hell, have a ferry point from here to here, have a second one at a second factory here to here, and start hitting them from both sides, right? So, ferry points, man. They're awesome. I want to watch this one more time. You guys can all stop watching now, but this is just too awesome. Time to edit this video and put in some Flight of the Valkries. I made 800 units of my limit, so it's getting a little bit laggy. And they bring them right back because that's where my waypoint is. Oh well, doesn't matter. Alright, transports are awesome. And you should try this with the UEF's Tier 3 transport that has shields and even bigger carrying capacity. Can you imagine 6 of those or 8 of those coming in like this? Rogo, I want to see that next game, man. Alright, transports. Whee!